Palden Choje Lama Rinpoche, Dagi Jiwo Pede Tension La, Kadin Chimpo Kone Jisong. Kusong to King to Zandu, so Chazawatan, Chujin Shabatan, Jesu Iran, Kushin Sowa. Kewa Chungsen Dagi Jisaba, Tamjin Zobe Jancho Chemo, Sa Shin, Pejujushi Method. Rejablin Shini de Kimbade, Sange Shin to make the Pulwai, Togo Namda Shin La Chepa, Show, Simjan Namki Sambat. Loye Cheta Chitawa Chijun Tumo Tepai, Chegi Kolo Korto So. Tashidelik. And today we will be speaking on the 3 poisons and only success. And when we are talking about 3 poisons, so first we have to know what the 3 poisons are. And those people or those students who have been listening to the Dharma, and even if they haven't been listening to the Dharma for a very long time, even if they have been listening for like a few months, or maybe if they have entered the Buddha Dharma for like few months, or maybe a little more than that, most of the students will know what we mean by poisons according to the Dharma. And generally when we talk about poison, so poison is something that when we eat or when we drink or when we are possessed by the poison, then what happens is we might get sick, sometimes depending on the power of the poison. Sometimes it might bring us some small discomfort. Sometimes it will bring us extremely bad illness. And in the worst case, for like in general, like in this, for us, it might bring us death. And just like that, even when we are talking about poison here in the Buddha Dharma, it is almost like that, but it has more severe consequences than the poison that we know. Because the poison that we know here in this world, so normally if like we have some poison in the food, or maybe there's a poison in the drinks that we drink, or maybe poison in the air or whatever, the most it can harm is it will bring us death. And when we die, we are dead. And it's like, might be very severe, but thinking in a Buddhist term, because we believe in like different stages of life, or we believe in rebirth. So when we take a normal poison, we die and it only harms like one life and that's it. But when we are talking about poison in the Buddha Dharma, it's little different. And sometimes it will affect one life, sometimes maybe for a few minutes, and sometimes it will affect us life and lives and lives, numerous amount of lives in our life. We get affected in this life, and again in next life, and again in next life. And we think these poisons are much way more serious or much way more dangerous than the poison that we know in this world. Because when we have these kinds of poisons, and when we talk about 3 poisons, these are attachment, anger, and ignorance. And sometimes we do say like 5 poisons also, because one is pride, and one is jealousy. But these 2 can also be included in the 3 poisons, so it's not going to be that difficult. And that is why normally we see 3 poisons. And sometimes when we have like severe case of attachment, or if we have like severe case of anger, then it will not only affect in this life, because obviously when we are angry or when we are attached, it is going to affect us in this life. Because when we are angry, so in the short term, it will make the other person or animal or whatever is in front of us, it will also make them uncomfortable, and it will also harm our peace, because when we are angry, we are never happy, and it brings us tremendous unhappiness in our life. And then that is not only the result of that. Again, in our next life, because of the anger that we have shown in this life, we are going to face the consequences in our next life. And sometimes when it is extremely bad anger or extremely bad attachment, then it is not only in the next life, but also lives after that. So we consider these poisons as the most evil poisons, and not the poisons that we know normally, that we can make or naturally, or sometimes maybe in the lab also. I guess we can make some poisons, but this can only affect us in one life. And talking about attachment, so sometimes when we just hear attachment, it doesn't sound so bad. But when we go deep into our practices, or when we try to think about these, then we will be able to see the defects or the problems that are brought by these attachment or anger or ignorance. And in a very simple way, or in a very easy way to understand, is when there is something beautiful, or where there is something nice, or where there is something extremely good, then we get attached. And when there is something bad, or ugly, or not so good, then we get angry. For example, if we see like a very nice, beautiful flower, then we get attached to it. We want to own that flower, or maybe have that flower, maybe in my room, or maybe in my house, or maybe in my garden. So we get attached to that flower. But then the same flower, when it gets wilted, when we don't water it well, when the flower doesn't have proper sunlight, and when we don't take care of the flower well, when it gets wilted and when it's die, then we don't get attached to that flower. Then what happens is we get angry with that flower, the same flower, when it is wilted. Because what happens is when we see that, when the flower is, the color of the flower is fading away, or when the flower doesn't look so nice, maybe like not so straight like before, it's little wilting, doesn't look very proper, then what we do is we want to get rid of it. So maybe we will throw it away, or maybe we will just put it in the garbage or whatever. Because as soon as we see a very discolored flower, we are like, oh, this extremely ugly flower, or whatever we say, and then we don't get attached, so we'll just throw it away. So just like that, when we remember properly, and when we are meditating also, if we think all this, because sometimes when people think about meditation, they think it's like not thinking at all. When we don't think, then that is meditation. But actually it is not like that. When we are meditating, we have to think. But what we need to think is, whatever we are thinking, we should not be losing awareness when we are meditating. So when we are meditating, it is very important to think, how am I getting attached? Where am I getting attached? Or like, how am I getting angry? Where am I getting angry? Why I am getting angry? And when we like take some time and think about this, when we are meditating, then we will know. It's very easy to understand and notify ourselves. Because normally when we get attached, it is only the good things that we consider are good. Like maybe our family, we get attached to our family because we think our families are very nice. We get attached to our friends because we believe our friends are very nice. We believe, or maybe we get attached to our house because we believe our house is very nice, it belongs to me. But then again, when we get angry, then it is the opposite. To whom do we get angry? So our enemies, or maybe people that we don't like, or things that we don't like. And when we don't like, then we get angry. And sometimes there are things or people that we don't like also, but we also don't hate them. and they are like some people or maybe animals or things. And those are in the middle. So for them, we are a little ignorant. So in a very easy way to understand is whenever there is something good that we like, we get attached. And whenever there is something that we don't like, we get angry. And then whenever there is something in the middle, which we neither don't like or which we neither don't hate, then we are a little ignorant about it. Because if we think when we are walking down the street, and especially if you are like walking in a very crowded place, you see so many unfamiliar faces, but we don't think about them at all. We don't get attached to them, and we don't get angry with them also, because we are ignorant, because we don't find them good, and we also don't find them bad. But when we find someone good, we get attached, and then we get angry. And sometimes we think that getting attached and getting angry is not that harmful for us, but it is actually not like that. Anything that we get attached to, it brings us lots of emotional damages, because it brings, when we just look it in a very general way, we think, oh, because of my attachment to a position, I am able to work so much, I'm able to do so much thing, and then I might get maybe a better job, better salary. And we think that our attachment is not that bad, because it is helping me improve. And maybe even anger. So in anger, we can also like include jealousy like that. When we see someone progressing, and because of the jealousy that we have, maybe we want to better him or her. And then sometimes it will make us maybe put in more effort because of the jealousy. And then when we are putting in more effort, and maybe we might be able to get a better position in the company, or maybe a better job, or maybe more success. And for the short term, it is like thinking that we have made it, or because of the jealousy that I have, I was able to work more, and then I'm able to gain more benefit. But in the long run, when we think about it properly, all this attachment, all this anger, and all this jealousy and everything, these are bringing not only like long-term harm, but even for the present moment also, it does bring lots of uneasiness, lots of harm. Because whenever we are having jealousy, or whenever we are having attachment, if you think about that moment, and when you check it properly, because whenever you are getting attached, you are definitely not feeling happy, because it is not with you. You want to have that. You keep on thinking about it, and it brings lots of mental disturbances. And just like that, even when we are angry, it brings lots of disturbances. And first we have to know that which do I have the most. And when we just think very casually, we think that, oh, I have attachment, I do have anger, and I do have ignorance, and we think we have all three of them. But when we check properly, we will normally find out which we have the most. Because for some of us, we might have the attachment the most, and for some of us, it might be the anger, and for some of us, it might be the ignorance. And first, we need to check within ourselves. And when we ask someone else to do, and then it is not going to work so well. Because when somebody else points us the faults in us, we normally get offended whenever somebody else is telling us, oh, today you're not looking so well, or maybe you're dressing the way you dress is not proper. When anybody says something negative to us, it's very easy for us to get offended. But when we look into ourselves, when we check ourselves, and then we definitely don't get angry with ourselves, and then it is very easy to find out which poison is causing me the most harm. Or maybe just finding out which poison do I have the most, whether it is attachment, whether it is anger or whether it is the ignorance. And then what we have to do is we have to first identify the poison that we have the most. And then after that, then we have to validate, or we have to measure the happiness that it is bringing or the unhappiness that it is bringing. And normally if we are like very new in the dharma, or maybe someone who have not heard about the Buddhist dharma, then when we talk about next life, then it is quite difficult for us to accept that. But even if you don't think about the next life, but even if you think about only this life, then we check and we see what these three poisons are bringing in my life, whether they are bringing me happiness or whether they are bringing me more unhappiness. Then it is very easy for us to remove them. And to remove them, first we have to know why they are poison, why they are bad. And for that, the easiest way is like the way I just said before. We have to see it when we are meditating, how it is affecting us. If you don't see them as something wrong, or if you don't see them, the poisons as the poisons, then we will never want to remove them, because only if we see something as useless, or even only if we see something as not so helpful, then we want to get rid of it. If we see something important, like maybe in our home, if we have like a new phones, then we will definitely not throw it away or give it to someone, because we will keep it because we think it is very valuable and important. But if we have like all those phones from maybe like 10 years back or maybe 15 years back, we normally think that, oh, these are useless, so maybe I'll just sell it in a cheap price, or maybe give it to someone who is not so capable of buying a new one, or maybe we'll just give it anywhere, or maybe throw it like that. So first, to remove something, we have to know that that is not useful and that is not good for me. And only after that we will want to remove it. But when we don't find it harmful, and when we don't find it that bad, then we will never be able to, or we will never want to remove them. So first, it is very important to identify these three poisons and to know that whether they are helpful and harmful. And then once we identify them, and then once we see them as something that is harmful, then the next step to remove them is quite easy. The more we have faith that that is more harmful, the easier it gets for us to get rid of them. It is just like a poison food. So if like all the sweets that we eat, like for example, maybe ice cream, maybe chocolates, all this, we know they are poisons in the food, because all this sweet brings us lots of health complications. We all know that, but we know that it is not going to affect so much. So we do end up eating maybe ice cream or maybe chocolates like that. And we know that, in the future or maybe tomorrow, it might bring us some discomfort, but we don't want not to eat that so much. But when we know maybe our food has a poison that maybe will make us stomach ache, or maybe give us some little bad health, then there is more urge to not eat that than the ice cream or chocolate, because we know it is not only for a small or short duration, it is going to make me uncomfortable for 1 day or maybe 2 days. Then there is more possibility of me not eating that food or drink. But then if we know there is a poison in the food and it is going to kill me, then there is way more possibility that I am not going to eat that food, or I'm not going to drink that tea or water, whichever has poison, because we know that that is going to kill me. And when we know that, there is almost no chance of us in eating that food or drinking that coffee. So the more we understand the problems the poisons are bringing, there is more chance of us to not taking them and getting rid of them So first, it is very important to identify and then to find the fault. And then when we find the fault, so whether it is attachment, whether it is anger, whether it is ignorance, or whether it is pride or jealousy or whatever it is extremely easy to get rid of them. The more we understand the disadvantages of this, the easier it is for us to get rid of them. So I think we will stop here for today. Tempe balgyo kama lotu shap chobe sambo yunden kakyabdu beijing shabe tatin shedu tinle chole namgya balba sho sonam de tamche sepa ni tomne ni be tanam pamche kega na che balap chubai sibe chole do wa sho